Hello internet family, and welcome to my second video for the day. I said more than once that I was gonna do another video on what helped to wake me up and why I walked away from Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's basically what I did, is just kind of walked away. Yeah, so I wrote down points so I didn't keep meandering around on the topic, and so that I could try and not make this video forever long. But the first point that I wrote down as to what started me on that road was I was watching a video. It had to be almost 20 years ago, on YouTube. I can't remember the content creator's name or the channel, but something he mentioned in that video just sparked me doing some research on my own. And he mentioned that the Watchtower, I'm reading my notes in case you wonder what I'm looking at, that the Watchtower had stock in a company called the Rand Corporation. And for some reason that name was familiar. I don't know why, but he had mentioned how the Rand Corporation, they were involved in weapons creation. And of course, having been raised in quote unquote the truth, I didn't quite believe that, because I mean, we couldn't join the military. People who wanted to come in who were in the military it was suggested that they leave the military. So my mind, I'm thinking, why would they get involved with or have stock in a company that possibly was involved in weapons creation? So I looked up the Rand Corporation. Back then I did. Of course, I don't remember what I looked up or what I saw, but I did. Somehow I found out that they did have stock in that. I can't remember how I found it. So to refresh my memory, I looked them up recently. It was harder to find out who owns stock in the company. However, I did see that they're a think tank, and two of their largest clients are the U.S. Army and the U.S. Navy, still to this day. So that was one of the first things that started, because when I found out the Watchtower had anything to do with a company like that, I was kind of hurt to my heart, because I'm like, all this time I've been in here, and you tell us that we can't be a part of the military. Why would you have anything to do with any company that has anything to do with the U.S. military? So that kind of got to me. The next thing, or number two, that I wrote on my list that got me to thinking was, again, watching, those forbidden videos on YouTube. Another creator I watched talked about the Watchtower having UN membership. And in that video, he actually posted a copy of the letter showing Watchtower Bible and Tract Society's acceptance into, or the acceptance of their membership. And I was floored, because any of you, at least if you've been in as long as I have, I started attending Kingdom Hall in 1975. One of the biggest things that they always talked about was how the UN was the wild beast that the Whore of Babylon rode. So that just blew my mind. It was like, why would you have anything to do with the beast? That's part of Satan's world. You shouldn't have anything to do with that. So that was a big catalyst for starting to learn more, watching more videos. I wasn't even thinking of them as being apostate material. I just thought I need to learn more. So of course, then I went down the rabbit hole with this whole UN thing and confirmed to myself that yes, they had been members of the UN, or as I thought of the UN back then, the wild beast. So that was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Wow. I can't believe that they actually would do that and that we weren't aware as a group. Wow. Okay, so another thing, actually I wrote it as one of the last things, but it should be number 3. I wasn't really watching. There was this documentary about Jonestown that was on A&E, and I was working on something else on the computers, but I had it playing in the background. And as I'm listening to it, all I kept thinking, the thought came to my head, if you just change the names of the people he's talking about to Jehovah and or Jesus, I could be sitting at the Kingdom Hall listening to a Sunday talk. And you know how you have a thought and then all of a sudden it's like the light comes on? That happened to me. And I started the next thought after that light popped on in my head was, oh my God, I'm in a cult. I am in a cult. And it was like fear came over me, and fear, the anger hadn't started yet, but it was just mainly fear, like, oh, no. Because I never thought of it like that. But just hearing what I heard in that documentary, I can't even describe to you the feeling that I had when I realized they sounded exactly like what I was being taught every week. So that was another thing that really pushed me, because at that point I was scared and I'm like, what am I in? And what can I do to get out of this? And at that point I called my brother, because my oldest brother, and he was an elder. He basically just ran me a new asshole about watching stuff and reading stuff, and that I needed to be careful, and that, and he gave me some Watchtowers articles and stuff to read, but it was too late. But at that point I also knew I could not talk to them. I was going to have to do this on my own. So my journey started. So the next nail in the coffin was an assembly, because we had an assembly coming up. Went to the assembly, and at this point I was like not riding with anybody anymore. I figured I'm gonna drive myself, because I was gonna get there like right before the program started, and I was leaving right after the program ended because I didn't want to talk to anybody because I couldn't trust myself not to say what I was thinking. And like I said, at that point, once I had talked to my brother, who was my family, if he was going to be all weirded out by it, I'm not talking to anybody else. So anyway, it was at the circuit assembly. Those of you who were witnesses before, you know what the circuit assembly is. And in one of the talks, the brother on the platform made this statement that made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. Now, mind you, I had heard this statement time and time again. Like, again, I said I had been going to Kingdom Hall since 75. So it wasn't like it was something new. But this was the first time that it actually hit me as to what was meant and how the statement was used to indoctrinate us. He made the statement, and I have my paper here, that brothers and sisters, we need to avoid independent thinking because independent thinking will make us like Satan, Adam, and Eve. Therefore, brothers and sisters, we want to avoid being like those three. And we want to have the thoughts of Jehovah. So at all costs, we need to avoid independent thinking. And I was just like, I'm done. No way. Because one thing that had always got me when you would look at the story of Jesus, they did not kill him because he said he was the Son of God. The Romans put him to death for sedition. Sedition meant he was thinking outside of the box of what was the norm or what was accepted. So didn't that make Jesus an independent thinker? And if Jesus was an independent thinker and we're supposed to be following his example, shouldn't we be independent thinkers? Okay, this is where my mind went. So to hear the brother say that from the platform, I was thinking, no, he's wrong. We need to be independent thinkers. We can't just put a faculty that Jehovah gave us aside and not use it. So I was like, yeah, I'm pretty much done with this at that point. But I still went to the Kingdom Hall for a while. Still tried to read the Watchtowers and everything, but I read them now with a critical eye. And I wasn't absorbing anything anymore. I'd go sit in the Kingdom Hall and I would write poetry. Maybe I'll do a video reading you some of the stuff I wrote sitting in the Kingdom Hall because I still have them. But I went to the meetings, but it was just my body sitting there. My mind was not there. I'd sit in the Kingdom Hall and I would look at the friends and I would think, how in the world can they sit here and all just look happy or like they're enthralled? Don't they know that they're being indoctrinated? So I felt like an alien sitting in the Kingdom Hall because I thought that I was the only one whose eyes were opened. Do you know how disconcerting that is to sit in a room full of people? It was almost like I thought I was in the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and I was the only one that the pods had not converted yet. That was how I felt. It was very strange and very weird. So the next thing that started, or that was like, yeah, I got to get out of here, was one of the people that I had studied with and brought into the truth. She had stopped coming to the meetings, so I went to see her. because the brothers encouraged me, you need to go see her. You need to see if you can get her back to the meetings because she got baptized. She was baptized. So I went to see her and sat down and talked, and she just told me that even though she thought she had learned some good things and she did enjoy what she was learning, she just did not like the fact that she couldn't be with her family on the holidays. She had a niece that she just loved dearly, and she just did not like the idea of basically shunning her family, you know? And she tried to talk to them, and they just wanted nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses because they thought they were false religion, which is so funny, because Jehovah's Witnesses think everybody else is false religion. So she said that she wouldn't be back. She said she'd probably, come on the memorials or whatever, but she just could not give up her family. She was not willing to do that. So, as far as I know, they never disfellowshipped her. She's just considered an inactive witness. But it made me think, oh my God, this is my fault. I brought her in, and then she had a strained relationship with her family because of becoming a Jehovah's Witness. So that was at the point I decided, I'm not going out. I barely went out in service, and then I just stopped. And I was at the Kingdom Hall one night, and I remember a brother walked up to me, and he said, Sister Silver, I didn't get any time for you this month. How come you need to turn in your time? Like, I don't have any time for the month. And mind you, back then, I was young, and I don't really know how to describe myself. All I can tell you is that I really missed the person I was then, because even though I was a Jehovah's Witness, I was mouthy and defiant, pretty much. Even though I was kind of a militant witness and believed that it was the truth, I would talk back to the brothers in a minute, because I never felt that I had to be in submission to them because they weren't my husband or my father. Yeah. Something I got counseled for, actually, more than a few times. But when the brother asked me about that, he was like, well, is there something wrong? Do you need to talk? And I asked him straight up. I said, do you want me to be honest, or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? And he was like, what? He said, well, be honest. So I said, okay, so here's the deal. I feel that we are dishonest with people when we go out in the ministry. We don't warn them that if they decide to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, they may have to give up their families. They may have to quit a job that they're in that might not fall in line with what we feel Christians should be. They have to give up a lot. And we don't tell them that. We woo them with all the good stuff, seeing your dead loved ones, a paradise earth, living forever. We woo them with that stuff. And then once they're in, we drop the hammer on them. And I don't think that that is fair. And I think that is dishonest. And I don't want any parts of that. You would have thought I shot him with the look on his face. So he just suggested, well, you know what, Sister Siberry, maybe me and a couple of the elders can come over and we can talk, and maybe we can get, help you to feel better about it. I'm like, no, I don't need to talk. I'm fine. And I turned around and walked off and left the Kingdom Hall that night. Because at that point I was just like, I was pretty much over it at that point. And it's like, I wanted out. But I was still, at that point, too afraid to just leave. Just pack up and leave. So then it was a few weeks later, and I was sitting in the Kingdom Hall. And for some reason, after the meeting started, the brothers went and locked the door. And I don't know why they did that, because they usually did not lock that door. And at that point, panic set in. And I'm like, and it sounds silly, guys, I know. But it was like, oh my God, they're going to start passing out the Kool-Aid. This is what I'm thinking in my head. And I know how stupid it sounds, but that documentary on Jonestown started flashing in my head. All the bodies, all that started flashing in my head. And I kept thinking, oh, they're going to make us do something crazy. Oh, wow. I can't believe that they just did this. And I was just like, oh, no, I got to get out of here. I have to get out of here. And so I was there for the talk. But after that talk, I left Kingdom Hall. I did not stay for the Watchtower study. And that was the last time I went to Kingdom Hall. And then shortly after that, I moved out to California because I had met my friend Jen through YouTube online. And then we started emailing back and forth. And then we started talking on the phone. And, you know, she and her husband were like, if you need someplace to go, we have a room. But you need to get yourself out to California. So I was like, yes, I'm going to do it. So at the end of that school year, I'd put in my resignation at the school that I worked at. And I packed up my car with the help of somebody from work. Because, of course, nobody witness was going to help me. And I drove myself out to California. And never looked back. So that are the steps that helped me to leave. So it's been a while now since I've been out because I moved out to California October 12th, 2012. Yeah. So, and it's now 2026. I'm still in California. I really want out of California. One, is so expensive to live out here, and I barely make enough money. I mean, I'm constantly worried about ending up homeless again because I've been homeless out here. It was only for a period of 3 months, but still, I don't want to do that ever again because living out your car is not fun. And plus, people are weird out here. So I would really like to get back to the East Coast. But that's my brief story as to how I ended up out. And at this point, now that both of my parents are dead, my siblings really don't have much to do with me besides putting me in group texts, you know, when they go to memorial assemblies or whatever. And it's like they text me, but they're not texting me. It's them talking back and forth to each other in the text. They just put me in so I guess I can observe what's going on. And I know it's to make me feel bad or to miss them. I miss them. I miss them a hell of a lot, but not enough to go back to the Kingdom Hall. So that's just not happening. So as to what I am now, I am not religious per se. I don't know that I would call myself necessarily an atheist. Maybe more of an agnostic. I mean, I really don't know. If I were to get involved in any type of religion, it would be one of the nature religions. Somewhere they look at the creation, well, I won't even say creation, but like Native Americans, everything's about the world. You know, to them, everything has a spirit. Everything is related. Humans as well as animals, trees. That kind of fits more with my sensibilities. And as much as this is going to freak some of you out, weird you out, I've also I look at things like witchcraft. Because in all honesty, I see it as being more authentic. And actually, I was just watching a video from somebody who talked about the Bible, and they basically said, or called the Bible a grimoire, and that prayers are basically spells. And that, you know, like witchcraft, they have their sacraments. Well, so does religion. When they do the wine and the bread to be Christ's blood and body, it's a sacrament. What's the difference? Miracles. In the Bible, anything out of the ordinary that happens, a miracle from God. Well, with witchcraft, it's magic. It's the same thing. And I don't know how people can't see it. So that's kind of where my brain is. I'm like studying, learning about a lot of different things. Because now I have the freedom to without feeling guilty about it. So that's kind of where I am. So that's the video. Sorry that it was longer than I intended it to be. But I hope you enjoyed it. I'll try and make some more videos talking about my time as a witness, because I was in a long time, guys. From 75 to 2012. Yeah. So I was in there when they really had some crazy teachings, and I know they've changed a lot, and all these people who are new in there, they think they know, but they don't know crap. They think they know, and they want to try and tell those of us that was in there a long time how things are and how things were, but you don't know, because you're in there now when they're trying to become more mainstream. So you don't know what it used to be like, and therefore you can't tell us who lived it, what it was. And that's the last word. I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a fantastic weekend. Bye.